Alright, welcome to another InDesign beginner to advanced course. Right, in this lesson we want to look at the anatomy of a magazine spread, the elements of a magazine spread. Okay, so this is a magazine spread, not a magazine cover, so please pardon me on that. Now we want to look at some of the things that has to be included on a magazine spread. Now in this course we will talk about something which is called kicker. We look at the headline, we look at what we call the negative or high space, look at the images, we look at the image caption, we look at the footer, the number, page number. We also look at the pull quote, intro and stand first, byline, and what to talk about the negative space. Now, first thing, when we are designing a magazine cover or a magazine spread, we have to consider the spread, okay, and not consider page by page. For instance, if this is page 1 and this is page 2, when designing a magazine spread, the what we call the composition must composite it based on the spread and not pages. Now you can see that this page has a link, this page has a link to this page, so you see that as this one is the writings over here has some similarities with this. Okay, so you may see the image over here, but what the image is depicting, okay, it is what is written over here. So it says he's talking to us, and this is he's talking to us is this man over here, which is talking to us. Okay, so that's it. So always when you are designing a magazine, these are some of the things that you should consider. Now there are three main factors that grabs the attention of what the readers. Okay, so we have the layout or the composition, which is how we've arranged things over here. That's the layout or composition. And we have the image, which is this, the image, and we have the headline, which is here he's talking to us. That's the headline. Okay, so we should consider that. Now let's also look at something. The headline, you can use a display font, you can use a sans serif or serif font, or you can use a handwritten font. So you can see there's difference from this, the difference between this and this. Okay, so this can be said this is a sans serif font, but this can be called a display font. Okay, because of the difference. Okay, this is also a different font, so there are some differences between these fonts. Okay, so we should take note of that. Now when we are talking about the fonts that we use, we have this one, for instance, for as an example, consider this, they use a display font, and this the topic is in how at the size of this slide. Okay, so it has different fonts that are used as the headline. Okay, most of the times you can see the headline can be placed anywhere. You can see that it's placed at the top left of the magazine, or the right or the bottom of the magazine, or the bottom of the magazine. Okay, so it can be placed anywhere that you deem good. So now also some things that can be done is, as I've said, the headline can be in different formats. It doesn't have to be one font like the one that we saw over here. It doesn't have to be one font. Okay, and one thing that we should also take note is that we have something that we call an intro. Okay, which is the stand first or the deck. Okay, so let me show you example of an intro that I'm talking about. So now when we have this is a cover, this is the headline. The headline is Dior and the Muse. That's the headline. And from the headline we have an intro. This is the intro, model, mother, and Dior favorite. That's the intro. So this portion is the intro. Okay, before we come to the body itself, please, I'm sure, I hope you understand what I'm saying. I was looking for some let's say a pencil or something to represent what I'm talking about, but I'm not getting them, so I have to use it the way I'm using it, and we can continue. So we have this as an intro, before we read the magazine itself. And also, the intro sometimes covers what we are going to read about the magazine. So this intro is like a brief of what we are going to read. So this ones over here, that's 3 lines over here, is talks about what we are going to read, which is this. So that's what the intro does, talks about what we are going to read. And also we have what we call a kicker, and this is a kicker. This one you see over here is called a kicker. So the kicker most at times comes before the heading itself comes. Okay, so that's what we call the kicker. And let me see if I can find a different example of the kicker to show you and you understand what I'm talking about. Okay, so that's what we call the kicker. And let's also take note of something, or the things that I was talking about, which is the intro. So now, what the intro also does is it acts as a barrier. The intro acts as a barrier or a bridge between the headline and the body copy. So you can see that before we bring the body copy, the intro over here acts as a barrier. Okay, so it like gives us space, a brief between these two, so that we can take time to read. Okay, so that's a barrier and a bridge, okay, between these two, the headline and the body copy. Okay, so we also have a subhead, which is this here can be considered as a subhead based on how it is written, so it can also be considered as a subhead. So there are many things that we can consider. So this one is also a subhead, the one you see over here. It's also a subhead, and this is also how I can be a good leader. It's also a subhead. So that's some of the things that the subhead is. And also, let's go ahead and continue. We want to look at what we call the byline. So let me see if I can show you some of the byline. So when we talk about byline, what we mean is the person who wrote the magazine or who wrote that story. The person who wrote that story, then you say by this person, by that person. So meaning it becomes the byline. So anytime you see something that says byline, then we mean the person who wrote the magazine. That's what we call the byline. So now, most of the times you see that the byline is written somewhere underneath the story, okay, or underneath the paragraph. Then you see that this is byline. So you have some of the byline over here, but it is not visible. It's not visible enough for you to see it. Now, so apart from the byline, we have to consider some things, and this thing that we are considering is the readability of your magazine. The readability of your magazine. So you have to consider the readability, and here you have the byline, some of the byline over here. So you can see the name over here. You can see photograph by Charles Gray, that's a byline, and styled by and story by, that's some of the byline that I was talking about. Okay, so now you have to consider the readability. And now when we talk about the readability, we want to look at how the reader can read it without, like, you see, so there are some of the magazines when you just take it, you don't know where to start from, to read from. Okay, and sometimes when you're talking about readability, you have to make sure that your layout for the text box, you should have at least 45 to 90 characters. By minimum, I mostly use 45 to 80 characters, okay, which includes the spacing. Okay, so this, you can see we have to make it like 45 to 80 characters. Okay, and when you don't do it that way, sometimes the reading becomes difficult. Okay, for instance, with this one, the reading may become very difficult since it is not that legible. So when we talk about legibility, then we mean how easy it is for us to read something on a magazine. That's what we talk about, the legibility. Okay, now, so we should consider these things, and anytime that you want to make sure your body copy is aligned well, we use something that we call the baseline grid. So to check the alignment, to make sure your body copy is aligned well, we use what we call the baseline grid in InDesign. We will look at that one, and also we will look at how to align our text, look at how to format our text in InDesign, the magazine layout. Okay, so now let's also talk about what we call the pull quote. Now you see this over here, it's called the pull quote. So sometimes the pull quote is taken from the story. Okay, so you can see, you realize that the t-shirt you adore has 4 holes in it. So that you see that the way he has made his face. So that's the pull quote. So most of the times the pull quote is taken from the topic or the story, and the pull quotes must also stand out. You see this one, we have a red color that is being used for the pull quote, and it is standing out. You can see it has enough contrast and it's visible anytime you see that you glance through it. It is the first thing that you may read. Okay, the first thing that you may read. So there are different ways of adding your pull quote. You see this one too, it has been included in the body copy, and this one too, you have the pull quote over at a different place. Okay, so usually you see them, it is being highlighted in the body copy, and always, it is not always that it has to be a quote. Okay, it's not always that it has to be a quote. Now this one, it is not a quote, but it has been highlighted for us to see it well. So that's one thing. So all these compositions, it makes your magazine stand out, and people begin to realize that, wow, you've really made this magazine very eye-catchy. So you can place the pull quotes everywhere, any place that you like, you can place your pull quotes over there, and it will be nice. Okay, so there are different ways to highlight them. See this ones, they has been highlighted. So anytime the reader takes it, that's the first thing the reader reads, and it's good. And you also have the footer. This, you have see some here, this thing over here. Please make sure to follow the mouse, otherwise you will not know what I'm talking about. This is the footer. Okay, and this over here too is the footer. And when you talk about the footer always describes something or talks about something. So you can see that there's you can see the page number at the footer. You can see the page number at the footer. So here, the footer here, you can see the date over there. Okay, the date this magazine was made, and it's very good to include the URL or the website and also the category at your footer, and it will really help you very well. Okay, so we also have what we call the running head or feet. Now, the running head, when we talk about the running head, is some of the things that you can see or find in all, or it is placed in all of the magazine. Okay, any place of the magazine. Now, for instance, the generation company over here can be a running head. When you see that all of the pages it is present or it is seen there, then you can consider it or call it as a running head or a feet. Okay, so let's take note of that, and let me show you an example of what I am talking about. Now let's look at this thing over here. Okay, the red one with a white font, white colored font over here. And let's also look at this one. You can see the same thing is over here. Therefore, it can be considered as a running head. This is the same magazine. Okay, this is the same magazine, and you can see the same this thing over here. So it can be considered as a running head. Now, sometimes the images that we use, you have to put some captions or credits on it. So most of the times you can see this image, we have the caption over here, which is also gives the credit to the photographer. Okay, and it is good to always add a caption, okay, and give the credit to the photographer, because due to copyright issues, then you have to do these things. So some images here, so this one too, we have the caption over here, and this one too, you have the caption over here. So you can decide to put it on every picture, or you can, after you've done everything, you can group them, or you can put all together and then put it at one place, in order for you to not to have problems with or with copyright issues. So you should also make sure to add captions to our images, or give credits to what the due people. Now you can also decide to do what you call write with the captions that you put on them. Make sure you should not put it on somewhere that covers the image. Put it at a place that is a negative space and does not affect the image in any place. So you can also write with the captions. You can also write it on a shape and not directly on the image. Okay, so here you see that it was written on a shape but not on the image itself. Okay, so you can also do that. Now what else can we do? The image can be an illustration, or it can be a photography. So this one is full of illustrations. You can also do that if you have someone who can do the illustrations for you. Okay, and some of the images can also cover the full page, which is called it is called what we call the run around. Okay, so you find an image that covers the whole page, it is called run around. Okay, so example of this image is called run around, and it's called run around or double track. You can use these images very good and use them well, and make sure that some important things like the writings or some things are not put on the spine. So let me show you an example of what I'm talking about. You see this image, the spine is somewhere around here. This place is where the spine is. Okay, and they made sure that the spine has no writings over there, so that it won't disturb the what we call the image. Okay, so from this place that where the spine is, you can see that the name of the car, which is Audi piloted driving, is somewhere else, and it isn't on the spine, but you can see some of the car is where the spine is, but the writings are not over there, because you should not put some of the writings on the spine. Okay, so that the reader will actually get the most important thing to read, and not the image itself of the vehicle. Okay, so you should consider this thing. So you can play around with your images, can play around with them, and make sure that your images goes to the spine. When you're placing your images, make sure that it goes to the spine, because it will be cut off. Okay, so we should always make sure we place our images, and the images goes way well to the bleed. Okay, at the spine, the image should go to this bleed. Okay, now I think it's becoming long, but let's continue. Let me also explain something so that now also let's look at some things. We have what we call the panel box out or the secondary coverage. Okay, I want us to look at that once. Now this one is an article in an article. See, this is the article, and this is also a different article, the same article, but it's different from what is over here. And you see that it has been put on a yellow or gold background. So this one is called box out or panel or secondary coverage. It's covering different thing. So that's what I'm talking about, which is called the box out. So in most magazines, you should take advantages of this thing. Here, this one can also be considered as a box out, okay, or a panel. Please, you should, when making the layouts, you should consider these things because it makes your magazine very beautiful. So this one too can be considered as a box out. This one too is a box out magazine or an article in an article. So most of the times it is being highlighted in the body copy or from the body copy, and it's also isolated. You can see this one, it has been isolated. Okay, it's not forming part of this one. This here too, it has been isolated. Okay, so we should take note of this. We also have what we call the eye line. And what is the eye line? So when a line runs from across the entire spread, it is called the eye line. So I want to show you as an example. So now with this one, this line over here, it runs across the entire spread. Okay, so it can be considered as an eye line. This one also runs across the entire spread, so the line over here can be considered as an eye line. Okay, now we can be playful with our images. Can be creative with our images. So you can see that this image, the line is running across it at the back of the image, so it is creative. Okay, this one too, can see the creativity in the image. Okay, cut out the perspective of the image. Okay, so you can be creative with that one too. Let me see. So with this one, can also see the creativity. So they've made it to look more like even you can stand on the image. Okay, so that's the creativity. You can play around with your images. Okay, so now the negative spaces too. The more negative space that you use, the more elegant your magazine becomes. Okay, so you can see here, all over here is a negative space or white space. There's nothing written over here, and this is a positive space because there's something written over it. So the more negative space in your magazine becomes more elegant. So you can see this one. With this one, there are not more negative space on it, and this one, there are more negative space on it. But so you can see that this one is more elegant than the one with little or no negative spaces on them. Okay, so we should consider these things. Now let me talk of one more thing before. So now this is a start line, and this is F, and this is a drop cap option. Now this drop cap over here is giving us the intro, with the intro over here for us to read this body copy. So anytime you see this thing, it gives us a guide of where to start our reading from. So we'll be looking at this thing as we go on. So with our paragraphs, either we use indent or we use drop caps. It gives us the intro or the part of where we should start our reading. Okay, so anytime we see this thing, I have some place to read. Anytime I see don't get naked, I'll start the reading from here. So please, let's take note of this thing, and as we go on to magazine spread layout, we'll talk more about these things, and know where to start our readings from, and also how to lay out our magazine. Thank you, and join me in the next lesson, which is how to design a magazine spread. Thank you.